Hey guys, Daniel James here, and in today's video I would like to take a look at a little cue I've written using only Sample Logic's cinematic guitars. Now, the reason I did this is two reasons. One, because those of you who have seen my videos before know I love to do sound design, and trust me, cinematic guitar offers a lot of possibility there, which I'll go into in a minute. And secondly, is there's a big misconception that cinematic guitars is a guitar library. Well, when I say it is a guitar library, but it's not a guitar library in the conventional sense. It's, think of it as a sound designer's dream. It's like loads and loads of different sounds created with guitars as the source audio. Kind of hard to explain, but like I say, I'll get into that in a minute. And yeah, I've got a few patches here, and what I'll do now is I'll just play the cue that I've written, and this cue's for nothing in particular, but if we just take a listen to the cue, everything you hear is cinematic guitars, and I'd like you to note how much of it sounds like a guitar. Okay, here we go. So there you go. There's the short cue I've written. It's like I say, it's for nothing in particular. It's more a proof of concept. So there's a few different sections with it. There's one section here, one here, and one here, and they're all very distinctive. And the reason I did that was so that I could talk about different ways you can manipulate the sound within cinematic guitars. So here is a look at cinematic guitars. As you can see, I've pretty much filled this instance of Contact up with 15 different instruments, and I guess the best way to do this is start from the beginning of the track. So this, we'll start with this section here. So if we listen to that, as you can hear, the main part, or the main rhythm, the main groove of this section is this instrument here. Okay, so we take a look here. This is the Jaguar bass mod wheel patch, which is in the instruments. If I just load it up, cinematic guitars has got three sections. It's got atmospheres, instruments, and percussives. So the Jaguar bass is from the instruments, and as you can hear, it's a bass. But if I take off the all the effects I've put, filter, delay, reverb, it sounds like this. So we started with that, and so the first thing I did was to put the arpeggiator on it, which looks like this. So you click that on, and what you get with the arpeggiator is you get how many octaves. I mean, if you know what an arpeggiator is, this should be quite simple, but you get the octave, so that's, you know, how high or how low the notes will go when they repeat. And then you've got duration, which is basically like the decay, or how long each one of these little notes here, each one of these little spikes are. I warn you now, just before I go any further, this could get quite in depth, so try to keep up. Right, okay, so what I've done here is I've programmed a pattern, which sounds like this. And that's done just simply by drawing it in. That's all you have to do. You could change the speed over here. If I change the duration, you'll hear what I mean by it's snappier. So you can change that to make things sound more snappy. I mean, if I put that back up to 16, like I say, it's akin to using the decay on an ADSR filter. So I'll just turn this up. I'm keeping this one just under 100, so it still sounds like a bass, but it's got that sharp edge to it. And then the next thing I did was I put a filter on it. Just a little bit of high cut here. Bit of delay. And that the delay is simply there to add a bit more drive to the rhythm. And then of course a bit of reverb. And another thing I did, which was quite interesting with this, is I actually layered the patch with another patch. And what I did with this one is I started off the rhythm, if I just load up the rhythm of both, I started off the rhythm the same, and then there's a section where it goes silent and then it comes back in. Now this was like more of a personal sound choice. I wanted to add a little bit more texture to the bass, just a bit more of a rough, distorted edge. So I put another patch, which dies away, and then it'll come back in. The reason I did that was mainly just to put a bit more emphasis on the original rhythm. So yeah, that's everything I did on the bass. And then on this part, I've put a filter, again a little bit of low cut, and then a bit more delay. The delay is actually different, I believe. That's doing a fourth, and that one is doing a third. So in fact, I'm going to take the delay off of that one. So that's that patch. And I just like this. This would be a good time as any as to mention how much I love this interface. I mean, if you like sound designing or you want to get into it, I recommend you start with something like Cinematic Guitars, where the layout is just, everything is there. That's, you know, any type of sound manipulation you want to do is right up in your face. So let's move on to the next section. Let's move on to this part here. In fact, now let's do this part. This line here. Now you could call this a hi-hat instrument perhaps, but of course, like any sound designer, it didn't start off as a hi-hat. So what I've got on here is lo-fi, filter, chorus and reverb, and an arpeggiator. If I take them off, it sounds like this. Oh, and of course I've detuned it. This is what it sounds like originally. And if you know what guitars sound like, that's a harmonic on a guitar. So I detune that to get this sound, which gives it a, and then I put the arpeggiator on. And again, I designed a little pattern like you do here. Which gave it that nice little rhythm, bit of lo-fi. Which makes it sound a lot like a mechanical kind of hi-hat. And then a bit of filter. And then let's mess with the sound while we're, bit of chorus while we're here. Oh, not delay. And a bit of reverb. And also with this patch, right? I hope you're following where I'm clicking. If not, so to get to the arpeggiator pattern, by the way, you click here. And that's the arpeggiator for the actual section. But if you look down here, there's volume and pan. And this applies to the patch. So if I click on the pan, it'll bring up the pan section. And what it says here is to activate, click lights next to parameters, which means that I can control this pan. In fact, I can control any dial that's got a little light next to it, like these ones here, but not phase. You see, phase hasn't got one. So I can control anything that's got a light. So all you have to do is click on the light, and that is it. And then a little sequencer will pop up, and then you can physically program what you want that automation to be. So if I play that line, you can see that I'll be a bit more extreme if I just bring this down to 2 steps and have it one on the left and one on the right. Now play it back. You should be able to hear that it's going between the two. Of course, you can change the speed of this as well. So that's nice and simple. Like I say, not any, but most parameters can be edited in this way. So yeah, I've taken a nylon guitar harmonic and turned that into a hi-hat. All the fun times we have. Okay, let's have a listen to this one. This one's a bit more conventional. So what we've got here is the sound of a power chord coming from a Les Paul. And what I've done here, like you can see, there's no arpeggiator on this one for a start. Just a bit of filter, bit of delay, bit of reverb, and a little bit of pan. And with the light on, that means it's automated. And as you can see, that goes from left to right. Nice and simple, but I think it really adds to that. If you listen to the beginning of the track with it in, it adds a little bit of a rip to the intro. Nice bit of texture. Like I always say, texture's one of the most important parts of composition. So what we got here? Now it's hard to remember which ones. I mean, a lot of these sounds began as presets and then I've tweaked them. So ones like this, for example. I can't think of anything specific on this patch. I actually changed. So that's another good part about cinematic guitars. I mean, if you don't want to, if you don't want to program all your own sounds, you can just use the presets in this, and they all sound great. So on this one, what it's got going on is, as you can see here, it's got panning left and right. So that's why you're getting that sound. If I take that off, you still get it. So why not? I'm pretty sure that is cooked into the sound. So yeah, we got a bit of a stab there. Then moving down here, so we've just done that one. So let's have a look down here what we got. A nice crunchy distorted sound. And this is a sewer barrel. So I'm using this sound. This one is a preset. This is in one of the banks. So what I'm using this for is basically as a crash or a hit. It's got that nice distorted sound. I believe I use it again over here, but more as a crash. Whereas higher pitched, and obviously it sounds a bit more aggressive. Adds a bit of violence to the track. So yeah, I haven't done much with this one, but I mean, like, I could, for example, let's say I wanted to add motion. I wanted to add some motion to that. I could, for example, click the high cut button here, and now that high cut is being controlled by this sequencer here. As you can see, high cut. And if I push play now, dum 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 dum. Of course, I can speed that up. Again. So as you can see, it's quite easy to create nice little textures just by turning on the sequencer. I mean, if I had to say one of the most important features about cinematic guitars for a sound designer like me is this sequencer. I mean, pretty much any parameter can be automated from the sequencer, which means that you have, which leaves you to, think about other things, because you can program your rhythms so you don't have to, play them in or play them out here. And then it lets you be a bit more creative, because you can try some rhythms up against others. You could try rhythms perhaps that you wouldn't ever try. But in this situation, it's I'm just using it for, I'm just using that patch as a smash. Okay. Okay, now this patch is quite interesting. I intentionally went into the atmospheres section. I believe it's ambience, dark and scary, falling help. Yeah, so this is an ambience. So if I take the delay off and I take the volume off, it sounds like this. So it's an ambient sound. I'll just play it on the keyboard. Or a bit like. As you can see, that's clearly an ambient sound. But I intentionally did this because I wanted to show you how easy it is to take any sound within cinematic guitars and turn it into a rhythmic pulse or a distorted grungy sound. So if I just turn back on my volume automation, as you can see here, by clicking down here it brings up this page, and then I click on the little light to turn on the sequencer, which is this bit. And now if I play it, I'll just solo it so it doesn't all get in the way, and then play it here. Now you see that little just getting hit, so I'd have to keep repeating. Right. So if you see this little man flashing, that's actually the rhythm that it's playing. I mean, I could slow that down. You see the little man is, of course it's doing the same on this dial here. And what I wanted to show was that you can create things like this from any sound, like I said a second ago. So I turned an ambience into a rhythmic, I wanted it to be more of a rhythmic crescendo. So it's, instead of just being like a rip, like dun, I wanted it to be like dun. So that was the point of doing this patch. I mean, like, if I wanted, I could add some distortion to this perhaps. And then I could... And then if I wanted, I could put maybe some drive on it. And I could automate this. So, for example, I could bring this down. I could have distortion coming on and off. So as you see there, you get like an offbeat, on-beat rhythm. And you can see this is instantly making me feel creative because I'm getting, because I've got the rhythm of my volume automation, which is going da 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 da. If I'm offsetting that with a completely different rhythm, I mean, it's technically playing the same rhythm but slower. You're getting different rhythms. And what I mean, like, to me personally, when I hear a good rhythm, it makes me feel inspired with other instruments. So like, say I was having trouble writing a spiccato string patch for a big action cue. I might, for example, come into something like cinematic guitars and then play around with rhythms, because then like it could give me a starting point, you know, it could give me the rhythm that, you know, it could, like now, like if you take a listen to this, it's got this nice offbeat rhythm. So it's got dum da 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 da, and all of a sudden I've got all these ideas like da 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 da, you know. That was one idea, but yeah. Of course, I can speed this up. So that's da 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 da. So yeah, you could do anything, and like I say, you can also change the brightness at the same time. So that was going. I mean, so if I turn that off by clicking the light, I could perhaps come over to the flange. Sounds great. I mean, and again, these can be so I mean, like, you could even technically, I guess, create a oops, right, you could like play it whenever this lights up. By the way, that's when it's hitting one of these. So I'll speed this up. So there I'm using just little stabs of this sequencer to throw a bit of flange on top, which is cool. Put a bit of delay, and again you can automate things like dampening and pan on this one. So yeah, that's basically my first section in a nutshell, and altogether it sounds like this. play from here. I'll play from the start. Okay, now this second section. Now, in mind, the idea behind this section was to, I imagine, like an action track, you know, where the proverbial shit has just hit the fan. So I wanted a lot of tension, a lot of. This was more composition than sound design in my brain. I wanted like a kind of tension mixed with almost like fear in the sound. And so what I used here was. And as I think I accomplished that with that sound. I mean, so we take a listen to the individual elements. What we got here is the sound of. This is almost being used as a like. This is like a bell sound. Let me find what it's actually called. So this is called Mystery Clock, and I'm using this one as is. This is just a preset, but I'm using this almost as a crash. Like I say, with anything you can, if I wanted to, I could create some rhythm out of it. Maybe not for this patch in particular, but of course I could do anything I wanted with that. Right, so moving on to the next one is this part here. This is actually a preset, and this is one of my favourite presets. It's got that kind of, I almost hear it's like a Transformers sound. It's called the Bat Tumbler, and I'll show you how they've constructed this one. I didn't want to change too much on this one because it sounds great. So you've got the distortion giving it that edge, and the filter. But the key to this is actually in the volume section, and what they've done is they've just created a two-step pattern that's going in 64ths. If I lower this, and they've created this, you know, this kind of ripping, weird, mechanical sound by sticking up to 64. So it's so fast. It's almost like a shockwave. I love that sound. Anyway, I sounded a bit enthusiastic about that one. Anyway, let's take a listen to this one. I just want to re-emphasize the fact that I'm still using all cinematic guitars, and so far hardly anything we've looked at so far has sounded anything like a guitar. This is another preset. There's nothing at all on this one. This one's Hellbreaker, so this is the raw sample of this one. So all credit for that sound goes to Sample Logic. Okay, this is all me. This is all me. Just want to take credit for that one. Okay, this patch was the one I had in mind for that tension sound. You know, that really fast kind of, you know, oh shit, we're gonna die kind of thing. As you can see, I've got da 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 da. So that's you know. So what I've done there is, excuse me, is I've put it on the arpeggiator, which is doing this rhythm here, and it's doing it in 30 seconds. If I slow this down, you know, you instantly lose that kind of oh shit factor. You put it up on there, you've got the speed. If you put it on 64s, it doesn't sound good. But and another thing I like about this sequencer is the velocity is actually really responsive. So where I'm hitting these, I'm hitting these up here. You know, you're actually hearing the rhythm within the sequence, which I think is quite important. And then on this one, I've got a bit of pan. So as you can see, it's going a little bit left, a little bit right, a little bit more left, a little bit more right, a little bit left. and then massive over here. And I've got a bit of low cut on this, which is a high pass filter. So I've used that just to make it really screechy. This would be a good point to have a look at this section over here, which is the cabinet section. So if I click on this, it brings up this this little guitar cabinet section where you can add the sound of a guitar cab. Which of course manipulates the sound in any way you would like. But then this is probably my favourite one on this page here, is the rotator. It's kind of, it's like a mix between an auto pan and a almost like an auto pan mixed with a filter. I mean, it's a rotator, it's essentially going around in a circle, that's what it sounds like, but can really add a bit of tension. I mean, if I leave that on and then put it in the mix, I mean, even then it added a little something to it, which was great. And then what I wanted to do there was double the laser track with something else that was going fast, but with an almost offbeat rhythm. And this one's called On the Brink. This is using one of the sequence presets, which is going on here. And it's going in 30 seconds, so. And also what I've done to this patch is detuned it by 12, because you know me, I love to detune. If I put that back to normal. There's nothing wrong with that, I just liked it a bit more detuned. This one's got a bit of distortion, a bit of lo-fi, a bit of filter. Now on the filter here I've got the high cut being modulated by the sequencer, which again you can do by clicking that light and it goes. I mean, I could create completely different rhythm just by clicking that. So I slow that back down. So what that's essentially doing, so you're getting this, you know, you're getting this really fast, like almost 30-second pattern going on with the actual percussion. But then what the filter's doing here is making it going. So if you layer, you layer that fast rhythm with a filter playing something like that, you end up with a more rhythmic kind of all over the show pattern. So that's I layered that with the laser sound to create that kind of which sounds beautiful. Okay, let's have a look. And of course that's the drum sound. The drum sound is dip, 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 dip. Let me find it. It is called Sewer Barrels, and it works brilliantly as a big boomy hit. Okay, so that leads us into the next section. I'll just take a listen to this sound here. When I go blah, by the way, it means I'm trying to speak too fast for my brain. My brain can't keep up with my mouth, or so people tell me. Anyway, what is that on? 11. So I haven't done anything to this one. This one's just a reverse patch called Near Miss. Okay, and that brings us to the final section, which is over here. And this bit, I wanted to create like a melodic kind of sound, something that had, that still had that kind of dark tension, perhaps in a, in an action thriller film, but had a little bit of melody to it, just something nice. And this one sounds like this. And that sounds like that. And the main part of this section is coming from this patch here, which is on layer 2. So if I just have a look at this, This was one of the first ones I worked on, and it sounds like this. The thing I like about this patch is it sounds quite complex, but it's got a definite pulse to it. You know, it's really driving this section of the song, and there's not that much that I've done to the actual sound to make it do this. This is very easy to do, and if I take the ARP off, you'll see instantly. If I put it back on, so of course again that pulse is being done by the ARP. So if I click edit, as you can see here, I've got it going at quarter notes, so 1/4. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going. Another thing to note is that when you've got the step sequencer like this, the length of the note comes in. I mean, if I had it like this, 64ths, each one of these notes is actually shorter. But if I bring it down to whatever I had it on, I think it was 8. If I speed this up, you'll hear what it's doing. So of course, on the chord. So that's just adding the pulse. I got a bit of low. I've got a bit of filter on it. Doing a bit of high cut or low pass, depending on what you want to call it. And again, a bit of delay, because I love me some delay. And also on this one, I just wanted to know I've got to rotate, so if I turn that off, it's just adding a bit of that kind of sound in the background to it. And what I'm doing is I'm offsetting this rhythm here with a panning rhythm. So you're getting the 1, 2, 3, 4, but at the same time you're getting the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 going on different ears. So you're getting the kind of 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4. It's hard to explain what that actually sounds like. I mean, maybe if I make it a bit more pronounced. Whoa. If you love to write rhythms, trust me, cinematic guitars is for you. The amount of offset rhythms you can make with just the sequencer. I think I've actually fell in love with a sequencer, if that's possible. I'm not sure if you can marry it, probably in some state in America. I'm not sure. Anyway. So this is the main patch, and again, what I've done with this is it's actually coming from a it's coming from another ambience, and I found that the ambiences are actually quite full of sonic texture, you know, sonic quality, lots of frequencies to mess with. And so throwing all these in with the arpeggiator gives you, like I say, it gives you more of a pulse, you know, because there's more sound being affected. You really feel it. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So the next section, I've got up here. I have let's take that away. Up here, I've got a bow-like viol, which is one of the melodic instruments, and it's not playing anything complex. And all I've got going on here is I've just put a bit of this is a bit weird. What I did is I've put the sequence on the viol, and then I've adjusted the sequence so that it's just fluctuating the sound a little bit, make it sound a little bit less straight, a little bit more how would you phrase that? So that it sounds like it's fluctuating more. And then I've put a filter on it. If I take the filter off, you can hear what it sounds like. It's not doing much difference because I've also got a filter on over here. Just to note, these two filters here can't actually be modulated unless, of course, you do you right click and you do it the normal contact way. Whereas if you do the filter that's up here, you can modulate these things. So I use this filter when I'm not planning to modulate, and I just want a quick low pass or high cut or low cut. And then of course a bit of delay and reverb just to add a bit of longevity to the sounds, make it kind of fold in on itself. If you take those off, sound becomes a lot more flat. Whereas if you do this, if you put delay and reverb on a sound like this, you get a bit more, it's a bit more floaty, for lack of a better word. It's a bit more kind of drifty, floaty. I'm full of words tonight, full of words. Okay, cool. Whoa. That's the bell sound. We've been over that one. Been over that one. That's a big percussive sound. And then finally, the last patch is it is a harmonics again up here, and this has got quite a few effects on it. So I'll play this from where it starts. If I take off these effects, it sounds like this. I'll put them on. And as you can see, the reason I did this one last is I wanted to show that there is actually rhythm here, as you can hear. So there's a rhythm going on here, but there is no arpeggiator switched on, as you can tell by this light being switched off. So the rhythm I'm actually getting here is coming from the filter. So what I've done is I've modulated the high cut, as you can see by the light here, and I've put a pattern onto that instead. Now this is quite good if you want to create rhythms that aren't so much. I mean, for example, if you're using the arpeggiator, every time the arpeggiator hits, it's starting the sample again. If you're using the volume, it's turning the volume up and down. Whereas if you're using something like the high cut filter and you're modulating that, your basic hit, I mean, if you want to imagine it like in the real world, it's the same as you holding the dial and playing the rhythm with your hand. Now, as you can hear, some of these notes are being distorted, and I did this with another little technique that I came to use by the end of it. Was you can actually, I'm using the lo-fi. What I'm doing here is I've modulated the bit to basically it comes on every beat and then every other beat here. And what that's doing is it's adding distortion to the first note and then not affecting any of the notes, and then a little bit of distortion there and then nothing. So you get this. So the first note will always be distorted at the start of a beat. So no distortion. And then distortion there. So you get that. If I turn that off, it sounds like this. Which sounds fine, just a little bit dull, so I put this on just to add that zzz. And of course, a bit of delay, because you can't go wrong with a bit of delay and a bit of reverb. So yeah, that's pretty much every section of this little cue. And like I say, the reason I wanted to make this cue was to show people the cinematic guitars isn't just a conventional guitar sound library. It's full of creative possibility for people like me who like to dive in and tweak with effects and create their own little unique rhythms with the sounds. So I mean, if this is, I think everybody should have it, to be honest. You should get it in your arsenal, and then you can I mean, if you don't like to create if you don't like to mess with sounds outside of Kontakt like I do, where you're creating things within Ableton Live, for example, or I mean, the interface alone, you know what I mean? Everything's there. It's just in front of you, ready to go. And when things are, like I say, when things are in front of you, ready to go, you tweak with them, you start finding, even if you're not meaning to, you become a little bit creative with it. You start finding rhythms. You start discovering new sounds within the actual plugin. And I think that's what everybody should do to get that unique sound. Because like I say, some of these patches sound nothing like the actual sounds do. So Sample Logic's obviously created these. Sample Logic's created these cool sound samples that that sound cool by themselves, and by all means you can use those sounds by yourselves as they are. But when you take those patches and then you mess with them even further, you've created something completely original that no one else is going to be using, and then and it makes you sound a little bit more unique, gives you your own voice. So yeah, Sorry to ramble on quite so much. I wanted to get in as much detail there as I could. And I hope you guys have found this a little bit useful or enlightening perhaps. And yeah, I shall see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.